Hi, welcome to my channel. We're going to be looking at VMware. So I'm not going to go through the install because, well, there's about 1,000 websites dedicated to showing you how to, and they have a good community. But what I'm going to show you is a couple of things that I think need to be clarified that I don't think everybody really goes over very well. IP address. You have to set a static IP address so you know where to go to. You might be wondering how or what your IP address is. I recommend a tool, and I'll be putting the link below, to use Advanced IP Scanner. When you go into Advanced IP Scanner, you hit your IP, it will tell you that this is the range that your IPs are in. From there, I usually do a scan. This will tell you that there's what is available and what is not available. From here, you want to pick what your IP is going to be and set it to static. That pretty much goes over what he's explaining right here, but I felt like it needed to be a little bit more in detail. After you figure out where you're going to go, you put in your IP address as seen here. In this case, mine's 10.0.0.172. From there, you're going to want to download the vSphere client for Windows. They also have a Linux installer and a virtual appliance if you need one. I've already got it installed, so I'm not going to go. It's pretty much just a next. From there, you'll get a icon that looks like this. You'll put in, when you're doing the setup, it'll ask you to use a username and login. Most of the time people leave it to root. I highly recommend changing it after you're done. And always remember your password. You'll get this certificate error, don't worry about that. Just ignore or install certificate. Now we are inside. From here, you can see these are the ones I already have set up, but we're going to create a new one because we want to create a test lab. So I'm going to create a new resource pool. I'm not going to do anything too fancy. Just going to call it lab test or test lab or whatever you want to call it. Now let's look in here a little bit before we get going too far. You're going to need an ISO image. Now I'm using the free version, so it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. But you'll want to go into your configuration, storage, and what I like to do is I usually pick one. I usually pick a place to put all my ISOs. And I like to separate just to keep them clean and separated. What you want to do is you go in, create a new file, name the file. In this case, I named it ISO. Open the file, and you'll want to download a file from your local machine. And that's pretty much how you do it. Once you upload it, I'll have a link below for where you can download a couple of evaluations because you'll never need the full version. Now let's create a new virtual machine. I'm going to start off for this first episode, and we're going to just do a typical. We're going to name it Test 2008 R2. Probably one of the most common servers still out. Next, I'm going to put it on my RAID 0, which has got about a terabyte. It is Windows. It is 2008 R2. I'm going to leave the default for now because we don't need anything else. I'm not going to give it very much space because it won't need it, so I'm going to give it 75 gigs. And I'm going to make it a thin provision because I know I'm not going to go any bigger. In fact, this machine will probably last maybe a couple months. I'm going to edit, give it a few more resources. I think 8 gigs will do. and I'll give it 2.2, just so we can get a little bit of speed so it's not taking forever. So what I like to do is, these are my current, I have a couple of Linux servers on this machine, on this server, and I'm going to do is, so that way I can separate test lab and my normal stuff that I use. And just to be clear, this is also what they use in enterprise and in businesses. So it's very much a real world scenario. I'm going to open console and I'm going to hit the play button to start it. It doesn't have an ISO image, so I'm going to use an ISO on the data store. This will be the quickest way that it will install. I'm going to find my 2008 R2, and then I'm going to click on the machine to be inside of it. I'm going to hit Control Alt Insert, which is the same as Control Alt Delete. And now it's loading Windows files. I'm going to pause here because this is sometimes can take a little while. Actually, no, it's going pretty quick. So let's take a look. The DPIs on your mouse will be all messed up. Install. I'm going to go through this just in case you've never gone through the regular install of a server before, which if you're watching this video may never have. We are going to do 2008 standard full installation. When you buy some of these or when you get some of these evaluations for free, you can try the other ones. I find the standard's pretty much the most common. And you're going to want to do custom advanced because that's just going to do the simple install. Next. This is the part that takes a long time. So I will pause here. If you want to get out of the machine as well, you have to control and alt to get out of it. And then you can escape the machine. And now you can see that I can move this around. And it's like basically this is like my monitor. So we can look around a little bit more in here and show you some of the things. Now I don't have everything hooked up to it, but I have 3 more NICs that I can use. And with those NICs I can set up VLANs. I can do a lot of interesting things to separate machines so they're on different networks. I can create a separate network. I've read somewhere where someone did a PF Sense in the VMware where he created a separate router, a virtual router, and you can do a lot of interesting things from there. Well, we're finally just about done installing. Usually can take up to like 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes depending on how much resources you allocate to the server. Let's see, we're just about done. Okay, after it's completed, it's going to restart itself automatically. It should, most of the time, disconnect from the data store. In case it doesn't, go to the CD at the top here, and then disconnect. Alright. Instead, all the DPI is going to be messed up on your mouse, so it's going to move extremely fast. And just pick a generic password. Just make sure you remember it. Now it's going to log us in. Alright. Windows Server 2008. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is go to VM, guest, install, upgrade, VMware tools. This is going to install. Run. This is basically going to make your user experience while going through the VMware a lot easier. I'll pause it right here, let it finish, but it's going to have to restart after it completes, and you'll see the difference. Alright, and it's finally finished. And yes, we'll restart now. Okay, and it restarted. Sorry about that, it keeps taking longer than I thought it would. As you can see, it's now larger. I can go on and off screen as I please. I don't have to hit Control and Alt, and good to go. Control Alt Insert instead of Delete. Log in. And there we go. Surprisingly, time does matter, especially with servers. If the time is off, it will not work. I am on Eastern time. And we're not activated because this is a trial. And we won't be activating. But I will be adding roles. So we're going to add some simple roles first, and then that'll be it. We want to do ADDS, which is Active Directory, Domain Services. Add the required features. We're going to do a DNS. Maybe. Wow, I forgot. It's 2008. So we'll have to do it a little different way. And we don't really need anything else. Maybe we'll do remote desktop. Actually, it just does one. I thought I could do multiples at a time. Apparently, I gotta create my domain first. Yes, install. And there is no current domain, so I'm going to be creating a brand new one. And that's pretty much, I think, where the end of this video is going to go, is creating the domain first. Sorry for my extremely squeaky chair. Also, feel free to go check out my blog and anything else for my links below. Alright, that is complete. I'll close out of this because we're going to do DC promo. Nothing too crazy, nothing too serious. Create new domain. We need to give it. So we're going to do test lab.local. It's got to make sure it's no longer in use, but we don't even have a domain, so of course it's not in use. Give it the forest level, which is going to be the current 2008 R2. It is also going to be a DNS server, so it'll automatically install. And yes, we will give it an IP. That's okay. It's telling me basically that doesn't have a parent zone, which makes sense because we don't have one. Give this a password for restore purposes in case you have to authenticate yourself. And now it's going to create the DNS installation and create the Kerberos and the policies and basically all the default settings that it normally does. I'm going to reboot on completion. Must be working because I can hear my server ramping up a little bit. While we're waiting for that to complete, I can show you some of the other things. I do have an OpenVPN server, which is a great server for going into your local network if you need it. And I do have a Ubuntu server, and actually I am running Spark, which, if you don't know, is a great tool that now I'm going to change. But you can do instant messaging with. Actually, encrypted instant messaging. Alright, so now you have your domain in front of it, test lab, and administrator. Now this means it's domain joined, it's created a domain, so I can create a Windows 7 machine, add it to this domain, I can go in here, I can go to Active Directory, here's my, go into users, here's a default, only guest is turned off by default, administrator, new user, create a new user, test, give it its domain name, next, give it a password, which we can just make password, and we have a new user. So I can create a Windows 7 machine now in my test lab, which is what I'll do later on, and I'll domain join it to it, and we'll all be set. And that's where I'm going to cut it off for the night. Go through those first steps, setting up your new server. The one thing that I haven't done, which I'll highly recommend, is doing updates. Usually there will be hundreds of updates, especially with a new install, and especially if you downloaded it a while ago. And it will take a really long time, and you'll just have to let it run. But in a real world scenario, servers will be updated constantly, all the time, every patch Tuesday. So you will want to make sure to update it because you want us to have most real life events as possible. I'm not going to worry about that right now. And what I'm going to do for the next video is I'm going to create a Windows 7 machine, a 2012 server, and a Windows 8 or Windows 10 machine. I haven't decided yet. And then we'll create the whole domain, join all the computers, show how they're talking to each other, and then we will start seeing if we can break them. Till next time, thank you very much.